In Unit 8, Section 5, we were finishing up Unit 8 by looking at dividing fractions. Again, just like the other sections, we'll look at some review problems, and then we'll look at variable expressions, which will kind of be the new wrinkle that we add. When we're dividing fractions, the first thing we do is go over what a reciprocal is. So a reciprocal is when you take a fraction and you flip the numerator and the denominator. So for instance, if we had 2/3, the reciprocal of 2/3 would be 3/2. If we had something like 1/4, the reciprocal would be 4/1. If we had something like 3 as a fraction is 3/1, so the reciprocal would be 1/3. Now, by definition, what reciprocals are two fractions that when you multiply them, you get an answer of 1. So if we take a number and then we multiply it by its reciprocal, it'll always wind up being 1. So to practice, we're just going to state the reciprocal of these numbers. One thing you need to notice is that if we have negative 24/7, to write the reciprocal, we'll write 7/24, but it stays negative. Doing a reciprocal doesn't affect whether it's positive or negative. 264, we said 264 is a fraction of 264/1, so our reciprocal would be 1/264. And then for 3.45, that's 3 45/100. So to write that as a fraction, we could write it like that. So then the reciprocal would be 100/345. So that's a quick review on reciprocals. So now we're actually going to look at dividing fractions. To review, we're going to keep, change, flip. I don't know if you ever heard that before. What that means is we're going to keep the first fraction the same. We're going to change division to multiplication, and we're going to flip the second fraction, or take the reciprocal of the second fraction. So first one stays the same, division becomes multiplication, and then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So now I can rewrite this if I want, so it's just one big fraction, and I can see if there's anything I can simplify. 6 and 20 can both be divided by 2, so 6 divided by 2 is 3, 20 divided by 2 is 10. So when I multiply those, I'll get 21/50. For the second one, I have a negative divided by a positive, so I know my final answer is going to be negative. I keep the first one the same. I change division to multiplication. I take the reciprocal of the second one. Again, I can write that as one big fraction. Need to still remember that it's negative. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So I'll get 55/84 for my final answer. Negative 55/84. Number 3, I'll leave for you guys to try. Number 4, I have 48 divided by negative 4/5, so I'm doing a positive divided by a negative. So to start with, I need to say that my final answer is going to be negative. 48, I can rewrite as 48/1. I need to change division to multiplication, and then I take the reciprocal of the second fraction. Now I can write it as one big fraction. 48 divided by 4 is 12. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I'll get negative 60/1, which is the same thing as negative 60. Now for number 5 and 6, we've got mixed numbers, so the first thing you want to do is write those as improper fractions. So 4 times 12 is 48, plus 3 is 51/4, and then we're dividing by negative 11/12. I'm doing a positive divided by a negative, so my final answer is going to be negative. I'm going to keep the first one the same. I'm going to change division to multiplication. I'm going to take the reciprocal of the second one, or flip the second one. Then I can write it as one big fraction, and then simplify it. So 12 can be divided by 4, and I'll get 3. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I'll wind up with negative 153/11. I then need to turn that into a mixed number, so I'll get negative 13 and 10/11. Number 6 I'll leave for you, so 3 and 6 do on your own. Just let your teacher know if you have any questions. On the back side, we're going to look at dividing algebraic fractions. So now we just have some variables involved. The rules all stay the same though, so I'm still going to keep, change, flip. So number 1, I keep my first fraction. I change division to multiplication. And I take the reciprocal of my second one, or I flip my second one. I can write it as 1 fraction. And then I have an x on the top and an x on the bottom, so those can cancel each other out. So I'm just left with 5 over 2, which is the same thing as 2 and 1/2. On number 2, I'm going to keep the first one, change division to multiplication, flip the second one, take the reciprocal of the second one. Then I want to write it as 1 fraction, and then I can simplify before I'm done. So I have an m on the top and an m on the bottom. Those can both go away. I have an n on the top and an n on the bottom. Those can both go away. 3 and 6 can both be divided by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I just have 1 on the top, and then 2 times 7 is 14. So I'm all done there. Number 3, keep the first one the same. Change division to multiplication. Take the reciprocal of the second one. I can write it all as 1 big fraction. And now cancel out anything they have in common. They both have an A. They both have a B. They both have a C. 9 and 3 can both be divided by 3, so this is going to become a 3. This is going to become a 1. So I'll have 15 on the top and 2 on the bottom, and then I can write that as 7 and 1/2. The next section says to evaluate expressions. So we just have multiple operations going on. If you look at number 1, according to order of operations, we need to do what's in the parentheses first. So I have 5 over 9 divided by, and then I need to work in those parentheses. I'm subtracting in the parentheses, so I have to have a common denominator. So I'm going to rewrite this with 18 as the denominator. 9 times 2 is 18, so I do 4 times 2, which is 8. So I have 5 over 9 divided by, when I do that subtraction, I get 5 over 18. So now I need to rewrite that as multiplication. There's a 5 on the top and a 5 on the bottom, so I can get rid of those. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 9 divided by 9 is 1. So my final answer is just 2. All right, I'll leave number 2 for you guys. Make sure you follow order of operations on that. And then these review problems are for you to do as well. Again, you cannot take the check-in until all of the notes are done and checked over.